DJ scream, heavy in the streets.
We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood. We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood.
Good rich.
Get it out the mud.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And I'm Ethan, and welcome. This is UFC 284, and that's what we have this evening for you. This is a UFC 284 prediction show, and that's what we have for you. And I was confused by the dates on this. This is in Perth, Australia, and it's says February 12th, 2023. So this event kind of snuck up on me because it's at 10 p.m. Eastern time, 9 p.m. Central time, but the date for it listed here says that it's February 12th. So it'll already be Sunday over there. So that had me confused, and this event snuck up on me because there was already a pay-per-view just 2 weeks ago. So this event snuck up on me, and also if you stay tuned, I'm gonna sneak in. I'm not gonna say it's really my prediction, but really who I want to win for the Super Bowl between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. And also, I just want to apologize for not getting out any more podcasts. You know, I really appreciate my viewers out there still cranking out views on some of my videos that have been posted more than a week ago. That really makes me feel good. That it makes me realize that I got an established channel, that a video that was posted more than a week ago is still getting views. But I've had a little bit of a technical difficulty with losing some passwords and stuff. I had to get a new phone and stuff, and that just kind of messed everything up, and kind of gets in your head when something happens like that. And I also, because of having to get a new phone, messed up. I had a really good Madden Mobile 23 team. I was kind of thinking that I was kind of wanting to try to figure out how to maybe stream that too on maybe a YouTube channel, but lost that in the process. I was kind of upset with that. So I just hadn't really been quite in the mindset to do a podcast recently. And I know my Saints fans out there have probably been wondering why haven't I posted a podcast about Derek Carr? Well, I've kind of been waiting in the wings. I want them to just go ahead and sign him, you know, because I know quite a bit about Derek Carr. I know quite a bit about him. I have a best friend that's a huge Raiders fan, so I just kind of waiting and hoping they just go ahead and sign him before I've talked about him. But anyways, besides all that, let's get into this UFC 284 prediction show. It's happening February 12th, 2023 at the RAC Arena in Perth, Australia. And so let's get right into this right now. I know I was long-winded to start this show, and if you stay tuned till the end, I may give you my Super Bowl, not prediction, but really who I just want to win. So can I get a menu? And let's get into this. So, like you know, You call me a casual if you want. I embrace it. I embrace it. I'm here for it. I'm here for the stray bullets. My beard and the mullet will maybe shield me from that. And take a good look at this, and maybe take a good look at this as well, because I usually only grow this out for the winter time. That's kind of usually something I only do. I do it for the football season and to keep my face warm during the winter time. And I know you guys who probably watch other podcasts and other videos, other streamers out there, they say, "Oh, I'm gonna grow a beard during the winter time," or I'm gonna grow a beard for the football season or something. I know they don't grow one this nice, or they're not dedicated enough to keep it up and grow it this long. So take a good look. Take a good look. This may be the last video that I got it this long. So enjoy it while you can, and this may get the mullet here may get trimmed up as well. But anyways, let's get to the first fight on the main card here. And on the first fight on the main card, we have a light heavyweight bout between Jimmy Crute versus Alonzo Menifield. And this is a pretty, just from the first glance of it, to me, it seems like that was the difference between this card and the last pay-per-view. There was some very unbalanced, just what wasn't equal matchups, but this is a pretty equal matchup. I guess I say that, but now when I look at this again, I thought I had looked at this before, but just off of history and how long these guys have been in the UFC, these guys have similar history, I guess. Both of these guys got into the UFC through Dana White's Contender Series. Let's see, Menifield, he got in, I guess it was, let's see, he was on the Series 9, and then he ended up coming back and ended up getting in on Series. He was on the Contender Series 3, and then he took a break and he was in LFA, fought in LFA for a couple fights, and then he came back and fought in the Contender Series again, which was the Contender Series 9. So he's had quite a few fights in the UFC. And then Jimmy Crute, that's also how he broke through in the UFC as well. And I guess he hasn't been in the UFC quite as long as Menifield, which I thought. I guess Jimmy Crute, I was more familiar with his name, at least, so I would have thought that he was more of a veteran in the UFC. But Menifield's been in the UFC quite a bit longer than him, because Jimmy Crute came in just in the Series 14. But anyways, enough of that, talking about these guys' histories. Just looking at their records, Jimmy Crute, has had 15 bouts, 12 wins, and 3 losses. And out of those 12 wins, he's been knocked out, or has had 5 knockout wins, 5 submission wins, and 3 decision wins. And then he's has been knocked out twice and been submitted 1 time. But the highlight here about those 2 knockouts is that he's been in his last 2 fights, he's been knocked out. And but the thing about that is and the one fight that he's been just straight up KO'd in was his last fight on December 4th, 2021, and that was by Jamal Hill, who is currently the interim light heavyweight champion. So that's something to kind of note. But then in his previous fight to that, which was UFC 261, which was in April 24th, 2021. And this is, if you've been watching any of my UFC prediction shows, this is my favorite guy right here, Anthony Smith, TKO'd him by doctor stoppage. So he's been knocked out in his last two fights, surprisingly, and I guess 4 or 5 fights back from that, he's been submitted as well. So he's had a little tough run of luck here lately. But Alonzo, he's been on quite a little bit better of a run. So that's coincidentally, he's had 16 bouts himself, 13 wins, 3 losses. And in those 13 wins, he's had 10 knockouts, 2 wins, and 1 decision. And in the losses, he's only been knocked out once and 2 by decision. And coincidentally enough, in his last 2 wins, he's had KO. One was by KO knockout, and the other one was TKO by elbows. So just going off of that little information there, I think it's kind of hard to want to pick Jimmy Cruz, honestly, because Menafil has been in the UFC longer, and let's take a quick peek at these guys' ages, because I'm that's kind of a sticking point with me as well. So Jimmy Cruz is 26, and Alonzo here is 35. So he's up there in age, but not older. He's got that grown man strength, obviously, because he's had those 10 knockouts. But it's hard to want to pick Jimmy Cruz, and just because of that, I think I'm gonna go with and both of those knockouts came in the first round. So this almost makes it too easy for me. So because of that, in the first bout on the main card is a light heavyweight bout between Jimmy Cruz versus Alonzo Menifeld. I'm going to go with Alonzo Menifeld to get the knockout, either KO, straight up KO, or TKO, because that's Jimmy Cruz's recent history, and I'm going to say that's going to come in the first round. So that's our first fight on the main card. And then, so the second fight on this card is a heavyweight bout between Justin Tafa versus Parker Porter. And this is, once again, this is more of this is kind of like this is kind of an old school versus new school type of fight. And Tafa, he is from New Zealand, so he's kind of a hometown boy, I guess you could say. And he doesn't have a very long history in the UFC. He's actually only had 8 fights in his whole career, and really he's only had 5 fights in the UFC, and he hadn't done that well, honestly. He's only 2 and 3 in the UFC, so this may be an easier fight to pick than I think. And I said it's old school against new school, because Parker Porter, he's 37 years old, so he's quite a bit older, almost 10 years older than Tafa, and he has 19 fights, so he's quite a bit more experienced. But he hasn't been in the UFC much longer. He only has 5 fights as well, but it's flipped on its head with how it's gone. He's 3 and 2. And I, I think because of that, I think I'll just make kind of a quick decision on this. And he has a much more rounded uh, uh, fighting way that he can beat you. Because in his 12 wins, he has 12 wins and 7 losses. And in those 12 wins, he has 5 KOs, 3 by submissions, and 4 by decision. And then he's been knocked out 3 times. In the 7 losses, he's been knocked out 3 times, submitted 3 times, and 1 by disqualification. So he's a much more rounded fighter. And then there's not a huge sample size from Tafa, because he's only had the the 5 wins, which all been by knockout, 0 by decision, 0 by decision, and then he has the 3 losses, 1 by knockout and 2 by decision. So I feel that uh, Parker Porter just has more ways of beating you, and so I think I'm just going to go with Parker Porter. And I'm just going to say mix it up here, and I think Parker Porter. I don't know what round it'll be. I think maybe he'll get this win by submission. So we'll go with in this heavyweight bout between Justin Tafa versus Parker Porter. I'm going to go with the more experienced fighter. Either one of them is more experienced than the other in the UFC because they both had 5 fights. But I'm going to go with Parker Porter to win by submission. And then in the third fight between welterweights, it's a welterweight bout between Jack Della Mandalina versus Randy Brown. Both of these guys have really impressive records. Uh, 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 Mandalina is on a winning streak, a long winning streak, a 13-fight winning streak. He lost his first 2 fights. First fight was a loss by TKO, and the other one was by submission by rear naked choke, and those were both fights all the way back in 2016. And he is just a knockout artist, and on his 13-fight winning streak, 11 of them are by TKO, 1 is by submission, and the other is by decision. Let's see. The 1 by submission is rear naked choke. I wanted to see if it was like submission by punches and kicks or punches and elbows, but it's not. And then Randy Brown, he has a pretty impressive, a little bit of a win streak going as well. Yeah, he has a 4-fight win streak going as well, but not quite as impressive because only 1 of them is by stoppage. The last 3 were just by decision, and the 4th one back is by rear naked choke. So not quite as impressive. And his total fight record is he has 20 bouts, 16 wins, 6 by knockout, 5 by submission, and 5 by decision, 4 losses, 2 by knockout, 1 by submission, and 1 by decision. So both of these guys have very impressive records, but man, it's hard to go against a guy that's on a 13-fight win streak and has 11 knockouts. And see how many of those fights were in the UFC. Only 4 of them were in the UFC, but the last 3 were by knockout. They weren't straight up KOs. All of them were TKOs, but the last 2 were also performance of the night. It's hard to pick against a guy like that. So in this welterweight bout between Jack Della Mandalina versus Randy Brown, I think I'm going with Jack Della Mandalina. to knock out Randy Brown. It's hard. It would be. I think that would, if you were placing money on this fight, I think it would be. It would be a wouldn't be a very wise decision to not pick uh, Della Mandalina. So that's who I'm going with in this third fight on this about this card. And then finally, on to this the co-main event, which is the see which is the bout for the interim UFC featherweight championship, which was vacated because of Alexander Volkov moving up in weight. You have Yuri Rodriguez versus Josh Emmett, and yeah, this is a very interesting match. Like, I don't know how I feel about either one of these fighters. Like, it kind of shows to me, I'm not overly excited about this fight for some reason. It kind of almost shows like kind of like the lack of talent I feel like in the featherweight division, because even Josh Emmett, if you've seen some of his interviews, he even said like he's kind of tired of being like a stepping stone or a gate holder in the featherweight division, because that's exactly what I would kind of label him as, you know. And then Yuri Rodriguez, like, to get this fight, he really didn't do anything to get this fight, because like in his last four fights, uh, this is kind of how they went. In the Brian Ortega fight, the fight was stopped due to a TKO shoulder injury. And then in the previous fight to that, he actually lost by decision to Max Holloway. Albeit it was a good fight. It was a fight of the night. And then he beat Jeremy Stevens, and that was a fight of the night too. But the fight previous to that was also Jeremy Stevens, but that was a no contest eye poke. And then that would have been the fifth fight back to that was Jung Chan Sung did get a KO over him, straight up knockout KO over him, and that was impressive because that was like 4:59 of the fifth round, which that's impressive. And then he got beat back, and that was, man, he had big breaks in between some of his fights as well. This would have been all the way back in 2017. It was a TKO stoppage by old man Frankie Edgar. So he doesn't really have like a impressive record or winning streak to even get this title fight, honestly. And then you have let's see. Then you have Josh Emmett, who's looking like the creatures from Descent and the Reapers from Blade 2 on here, or one of the vampires from 30 Days a Night, the bald-headed vampire from 30 Days a Night, who does have actually a winning streak going, and he, out of his 20 bouts, he has 18 wins and 2 losses. So he does have an impressive win to loss ratio, but how some of them come are not overly impressive. He has 6 knockouts, 2 submission, and then it's the 10 decisions that are not really overly impressive. But he's only been knocked out once, and he's only gone to decision once. But in his little fight win streak that he's got going, the last 3 were by decision. and the last fight was Kelvin Cantor, which was just a split decision. And then you go all the way back to his 6 fights ago, he was KO'd elbows by Jeremy Stevens. So, man, and then I gotta highlight the age because that's just what I do. He's also 37 years old, and I'm over here talking about his age and and how he's a stepping stone, a gatekeeper uh, for the flyweight division. But I'm also not really impressed with Yari Rodriguez either. So man, this is just kind of a tough fight for me to pick, and really a fight that I'm honestly not excited about. So I think I'm gonna pick for the flyweight co-main event um, interim title bout. I think Yari Rodriguez versus Josh Emmett. I'm gonna go with Josh Emmett to win by decision. That's what I'm going with in this co-main event. All right. So yeah, that was anticlimactic after all that. So on to the lightweight bout, uh, which is the UFC lightweight championship bout between the champion Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkov, and this is an exciting fight between these two because they both have like such different styles. They say styles make up um, fights, make fights. And these are like both of these guys have like polar opposite of styles, and that's what's exciting about this fight. And Islam Makhachev, he's a ground fighter, uh, trains with Khabib, like that. That's who he's trained by. That's who he trains with, like one of the best ground fighters of all time. And he has the 12 submissions, and he's on a ridiculous win streak as well. Let's see here. He's on an 11 fight win streak, and how he got the belt was by arm triangle choke over Charles Oliveira in that fight. He just made it look easy. He made it look easy by with people trying to say like Charles Oliveira. People were trying to crown him as like one of the greatest of all time, and he just made it look easy beating Charles Oliveira. And then you got Alexander Volkanovski, who basically just cleaned out. Just talking about how the talent in the featherweight division looks weak. He pretty much just cleaned out that whole division that he had to move up to lightweight to find a respectable opponent. And that's what he's having to do here to fight Makhachev. And so that's maybe the issue that he's running into here is maybe the weight, the size different, but he's also on a ridiculous fight win streak. He's also on a ridiculous win streak as well. Let's see if I can even count this. This is so long. There's going to be some dead air here. 22, a 22 fight win streak. That's just crazy. But the thing is with that, they're not all at lightweight. So that could be kind of misleading. That may not help him in this fight against Islam Makhachev because he's maybe a little undersized for this division and for this fight. But he has a different style. He has out of his 25 wins, he has 12 knockouts. So he gets the knockouts out of his 26 matches, 26 bouts. He has 25 wins, 12 by knockout, 3 by submission, and 10 by decision, and only has 1 loss. You do the math. I can do it for you too. And has only been knocked out one time in the 1 loss, and that was all the way back in 2013. That was a long time ago. That was 10 years ago. But man, but you also hear, doing interviews and hearing documentaries and stuff, that they talk about how Islam Makhachev has a stand-up game, has striking, can knock out people. He does have 4 knockouts in his career, and he has a similar win-loss record as well. He has 23 wins, and in his 1 loss, he'd been knocked out as well. And that was all the way back in 2015. So they almost have identical win-loss records and how it came by, but the only difference is Makhachev's were by submission, and Volkanovski's were by knockout or by knockouts. But you hear people say that Makhachev also has a stand-up game, has striking. But man, this is a tough one to pick, man. If I was a betting man, I wouldn't put money on this. This is a coin toss for me. I remember at the end of Islam Makhachev's bout against Charles Oliveira, he told Alexander Volkanovski to get on. He was like, "Short guy, come in the ring." So that there was a lot of build up to this fight, trying to make it controversial, trying to make this a grudge match, but I don't think it really did. But this is just a tough one for me. I think I almost want to pull out a coin and do a coin flip. But Islam Makhachev he's never even defended this belt yet. And then we look at the ages here. Alexander's only 34 years old, so he's not up there really in age yet. And Makhachev, he's a little older than I thought he was. He's 31, but not old either. This is maybe one of the toughest fights I've had to pick in a while, because these guys match up so well and have such an identical win-loss record. I think I'm gonna have to go with maybe the guy that has more title. He has that grit. He has that championship valor. He's actually defended a belt more often. He's been in that deep water. He knows what it's like to defend a belt. He has that championship grit. He's been a champion. He's defended a belt. He's been a long reigning champion, and he just knows what it's like. Islam Makhachev's only had the belt once. He's just won the belt. It's one thing to win the belt. It's another to defend it and keep it for a long period of time. And because of that, I think I'm going to go with Alexander Volkanovski. And I'm probably going to pick this fight just like in the co-main event. I'm probably going to pick it. I know it's not exciting like me picking all the previous fights to maybe go to decision or be finishes, but I think I'm going to pick this to go to decision as well. So in the lightweight championship bout, Islam Makhachev, the champion, versus Alexander Volkanovski, I'm gonna pick Alexander Volkanovski to become the new lightweight champion. So, so on the UFC 284 prediction show, on the first bout of the main card between Jimmy Cruz versus Alonzo Menifield. I'm going to pick Alonzo Menifield to win by knockout in the first round. And then on the second bout between heavyweights, Ju Justin Tafa versus Parker Porter. I'm going to pick Parker Porter to win by submission, and then in the welterweight bout between Jack Della Maddalena versus Randy Brown, I'm going to pick Jack Della Maddalena to win by knockout. And I think, if I remember, I've been dragging this out for so long. Can't remember if I said that was going to be in the first round or not, but I think I just said KO on that, just a knockout on that. And then in the featherweight bout, interim title bout between Yari Rodriguez versus Josh Emmett, I'm going to pick Josh Emmett to win the interim featherweight title bout. And then in the lightweight bout, lightweight title bout, the champion Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. I'm gonna pick Alexander Volkanovski to win this by decision. So both those, the co-main event and lightweight champion, both those championships, both picking those by decision. So that's what I have for you for the UFC 224 prediction show, which is coming out of which will be held at the RAC Arena in Perth, Australia. So that's all I have for the UFC. So now I'm gonna move on to the Super Bowl. I don't really know if you guys have stayed with me long enough. I'm just gonna kind of move on to the Super Bowl. See if I can pull up any information about even where this is. I really have not that much interest in this game at all. I'm not really predicting who I think is going to win. I'm really more predicting who I want to win more than anything. And this game is actually February 12th, 2023, and this is at State Farm Stadium, Glendale, Arizona, and both of these teams, which I guess it includes the playoff record. Kansas City Chiefs are 14-3 in the AFC, and the Philadelphia Eagles are 14-3 in the NFC, and they were both the #1 seed in each of their conferences. So I mean, they were hands down the best teams in their conferences. That there's no arguing that the best teams made it all the way to the end. And like I said, I'm really just picking who I want to win more than anything. And if you live in the South or live around Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, anywhere around that area, you probably have to deal with Chiefs fans or listen to Chiefs fans. And I just really don't like Kansas City Chiefs fans, to be honest. And that kind of strays me to picking who I want to pick here. And it's definitely not because I like Philadelphia Eagles either, because I don't really like their fans either, because feels like the Saints really got fleeced in their 2 first-round draft pick trade for Olave and Trevor Penning, and now the Philadelphia Eagles have a chance at winning a Super Bowl and then still having the 10th pick in the draft. And then the Saints did the trade with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and only got back like a fifth round pick or something, which is just a horrible trade. And then he led the league with 6 interceptions and only played in 12 games. But honestly, because of all that, I think I'm gonna go with wanting the Philadelphia Eagles to win because I honestly can't stand the Chiefs. You know, I'm not a huge fan of Patrick Mahomes. I honestly don't think his ankle was as hurt as he was leading on. I think that was just kind of a build up thing. I feel like he's almost going to be like the new Tom Brady where he does things to try to build his legacy, you know, when really it, he was just kind of playing up the injury more just to try to have people talk about how tough he was and how much grit he has. But I just, well, I don't know. I wasn't buying it. He definitely didn't look that hurt at the end of the game when he scrambled for 10 yards and got pushed out of bounds. But honestly, I think just the Eagles are really just a better team in general. I think really the only great players on the Chiefs team are Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes. Like those are probably the only two top 10 players in the NFL on their team, while the Chiefs have multiple top 15 players on their team, like Justin, Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, who rushed for close to 1,300 yards, AJ Brown, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and then the ridiculous thing about this team, like I'd heard the stat about them having like close to 80 sacks, and then they said something about their team having 3 guys that had like 11 sacks. Well, yeah, okay. I thought that included Hassan Reddick, but no, they have 4 guys on their team that have double-digit sacks, and I'll name them off for you real quick. So Hassan Reddick has 16 sacks on the season, so that didn't include him. Javon Hargraves has 11 sacks. Brandon Graham has 11 sacks, and Josh Sweat has 11 sacks, which is that's crazy to me. And then even Fletcher Cox, who at one time he was like one of the best defensive tackles in the league. He even has 7 sacks on the season. So like there you go. There's just those 4 defensive linemen. You could say those guys are in the top 15, top 25 players in the league. And I just don't think the Chiefs have that many great players on their team. And then you got AJ Brown, who had almost 1,500 yards receiving. You got Devontae Smith, who has almost 1,200 yards receiving. Like the only 3 great players really on the Kansas City Chiefs is Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones. Yeah, yeah. And honestly, I think Chris Jones, who had 15 and a half sacks, probably should have won the Defensive Player of the Year over Nick Bosa. That's just my opinion, because I think it's more impressive to get 15 and a half sacks at the defensive tackle spot than at the defensive end spot. And he completely wrecked that game. He had like a similar game that Aaron Donald had in the Super Bowl in the AFC Championship game against the Bengals. It was almost like a carbon copy of a game that he did. Like he's really the reason the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl right now. So I think they just have better players overall. So that's really why I'm breaking it down. I said I wasn't going to do a prediction of why the Philadelphia Eagles, but really there's the reason. And then just for being salty about the CJ Gardner Johnson trade, I hope CJ Gardner Johnson has a really good game in this game. I hope he's like I hope he's the MVP of the Super Bowl. And the reason I say that, there's probably Saints fans that don't want that to happen. But I hope he has a really good game in this game. So I hope that forces the 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 Philadelphia Eagles to make a decision of whether they want to sign him to be like the highest paid free safety in the season. Like, do they want to do that? Do they want to make a decision of whether they want to pay a guy that only played in like 12 games like the last 2 years? Because he missed some games with the Saints last year too. I think he may have only played in 12 games with the Saints in the previous in 2021, and then he only played in 12 games uh, this year as well. But he did lead the league in sacks. But do they want to pay a guy that's kind of showing that he's a little injury prone? And that's kind of why the Saints moved on from him as well, because he wanted to be paid like maybe as the highest paid corner or maybe paid as the highest paid free safety. So I want that to put the Philadelphia's in a between a rock and a hard place, and kind of put them in a tight spot, so even though they made that trade with the Saints, like they don't necessarily just outright get to keep this guy. They may end up having to franchise tag him and make a decision like, do you want to pay him 15, 18, 20 million dollars, even though he's kind of shown he's injury prone. So that's the saltiness that I may have come from this game. So there you go. There's my prediction for the Super Bowl, or maybe kind of just who I want to win. And then you also have my UFC 284 prediction. So that's a UFC 280 prediction show, and it's uh, what is this? Trying to see what is this? Is this uh, Super Bowl 50, 52? I'm trying to do the math here. Oh, this is UFC or Super Bowl 56. No, this is Super Bowl 57. These Roman numerals. So this will be uh, so then this will also be if you waited till the end, this will also be Super Bowl 57 prediction show as well. So uh, I think that's all I have for you. So with that, can I get a check, please?